So, sorry about that. All right. Did you know that physical activity can actually reduce the risk for both mental health and up to 20 chronic diseases? Hi, my name is Eric Hodgkins, and for my senior project, I worked at a local gym with various age groups, as well as teaching toddlers how to skate. Here is the gym I worked at. It's called Roots Athletes, and it's located in Manchester, New Hampshire. As you can see, this is just the new gym they moved into a few months ago, and that is the freshman age group that I worked with. And something I noticed about the kids that would come in is they would all be very quiet at the beginning. They'd walk in, they'd be very slouched, they didn't really want to be there, and I could tell how unmotivated they were. But as I noticed throughout the workout, they began to change their morale and they began to crack jokes, talk more with their friends, and even compete against each other when working out. So this brings me to my next point, is that physical activity can actually help reduce the risk of depression, anxiety, and feeling stressed. During exercise, endorphins are released into the brain, and that is a good chain reaction that will make you feel a lot better. It makes you feel good, which will increase one's confidence and feel less stressed and will take away any sad thoughts you might be thinking about. Up here, I shows a survey that was done about teens and adults when asked how they felt after a workout, and they all said that they felt good about themselves, were in a good mood, and feeling less stressed. Growing old, something we all don't want to have happen to us, but is honestly inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what we do, but we can actually slow the process. A study that was done looked at 3 different groups of people, 2 of which were both in their 70s and 1 group was in the 20s. The 20-year-old group and one of the 70-year-old groups answered through a survey that they actually lived more of a stagnant lifestyle and didn't work out as much, whereas the other group of 70-year-olds said they worked out at least twice a week throughout their whole life. And the goal of the study was to see how their body reacted from doing physical activity, and they specifically looked at range of motion and how the muscle groups were and whether or not they broke down, which are 2 of the fastest things that break down when you age. The results from the study actually came out that the group that was active and was in their 70s, they had a similar body style to that of a 40-year-old. So their body type was nearly 30 years younger than what it actually was, and that's almost half their age, which is pretty impressive. And another thing I looked at actually was that you can build muscle into your late 90s, which many people don't think that's even possible, and they usually become pretty lazy and feel like it's pointless to work out even in their 30s or 40s. It all comes down to diet, which is the most important thing, and in order to gain muscle, you have to intake a lot of protein. Even if you don't work out that much, protein is way more crucial than actually working out. Going back to the diseases I talked about earlier, some of the ones up here are depression, type 2 diabetes, specific cancers like colon and breast cancer, heart disease, and even hip fractures, which isn't a disease, can all be reduced by at least 20%. I'd like to talk a little bit about dementia in particular. My grandparents live next to this person who has been friends with them and talked to them all the time for about 30 plus years now. And a couple of years ago, he was actually diagnosed with dementia, and it's been very hard for my grandpa because he talks all the time, and they've been very good friends. And I remember one day when I went over to my grandparents' house, they actually came back, and they usually like to tell a lot of jokes, and they're very upbeat, but they were very sad, and I was kind of curious what was going on. So my parents asked, and they actually said that when they went to see their neighbor, he went up and shook his hand, but he forgot what his name was. And he didn't remember my grandpa's name, and I just could tell that that was very hard on my grandpa to realize that a friend of 30 plus years forgot what his name was. And over the past couple of years, it's been very hard for him and his family, as he is alone in the house with his wife, who has to keep paying for 24/7 assistance, as he's no longer able to brush his teeth, eat, shower, or even get dressed on his own. And so it's been very hard for them, as well as the neighbors and all their friends, as my grandpa still to this day will mow his lawn in the summer and do yard work at his house because he's no longer able to. And so here's a quote I have from Plato, who was an Athenian philosopher in 429 BC, and he said, "Lack of activity destroys the good condition of every human being, while movement and methodical physical activity can preserve it." And this is pretty much what my whole project is based on, is just the fact that if you don't do physical activity, you're not only hurting your body, but also your mind. And if you can do activity in any way, it's gonna benefit you. And to conclude my project, my goal for it was to teach these kids how fun it is to be active and skate and do anything that keeps your body moving, because my goal was to have them keep maintaining these good habits and live a long, healthy lifestyle. Any questions? Thank you.